So I'm George Sparks, CEO of the Denver Museum of Nature and Science, and welcome to the 2019 Annual Community Luncheon for the Center for Women's Health Research at the nationally recognized School of Medicine on the University of Colorado Anschutz Medical Campus. Let's hear it for Judy and her team. So today marks the 16th Annual Center for Women's Health Research Community Luncheon. I'm going to take a poll here. Who was at the very first luncheon in the basement of the tattered cover when it was in Cherry Creek? Raise your hands. Oh my gosh, I didn't even know where it was held or anything. Okay, how many of you have been to 5 or more of these things? Yep, so a lot of us. Now put their hands down. Who's their first time today? Oh wow, this will not be your last time, so thank you for all coming today. So what great diversity and longstanding supporters here. I'm so proud to support the University of Colorado Anschutz Medical Campus and the Center for Women's Health Research and all they have done for women's health and the health of our families. And we're here today to enjoy lunch and learn from a leading voice in healthcare, Dr. Mukherjee. We are so fortunate to have you here today. Thank you. We're all here to put things in motion to support an organization that is doing great things that will change all of our lives. We all have important women in our lives, mothers, wives, daughters, sisters, friends. None of us would be here today if not for a woman. Women represent over 50% of the human population, and they take on the majority of caregiving. They make the majority of healthcare decisions for their family, yet they are underrepresented in health research and treatments. In fact, diagnosis and prevention strategies rarely take into account sex differences and what it means for care. We have a dynamic program ahead that includes a video designed to give you a glimpse of the work and the people the center supports. There will be a presentation of the 2019 Seed Grant Awards from the center director and co-founder, Dr. Judy Regensteiner, a presentation by center researcher, Dr. Elizabeth Wellberg, followed by our keynote speaker, Dr. Siddhartha Mukherjee. The annual community luncheon would not be possible without the generosity and hard work of the host committee, advisory board, and benefactors. Collectively, they contribute by helping achieve the mission of performing research, mentoring the next generation of scientists, and educating the public and healthcare providers. We would especially like to thank the chairs of the host committee, Sharon and Lanny Martin. Let's hear it for Sharon and Lanny. And the other members of the host committee for making this event a success. If you're on the host committee, please stand and be recognized. Stand up. This is a lot of work. These folks do amazing things. Thank you so much. We also want to recognize the leadership here today from the University of Colorado. We're grateful for their support and efforts toward making women's health and sex differences a priority. So right up here we have the University of Colorado President Mark Kennedy and his wife, First Lady Debbie Kennedy. Please stand. I've gotten to meet President Kennedy several times, and I'm very impressed. You're going to do a great job. Thank you for joining us. We have the University of Colorado Anschutz Medical Campus Chancellor Don Elliman. Don's here. Don, please stand. And the about-to-be-retired University of Colorado Denver Campus Chancellor Dorothy Harrell. Where's Dorothy? Over here. We're going to miss you. We have the CU School of Medicine Dean, John Riley. He's right here. And the University of Colorado Foundation President, Jack Fenlock. Please stand, Jack. Finally, I want to acknowledge and thank the very active members of the Center's Advisory Board. Their engagement and dedication to the Center and its mission has brought together all of us today in support of the Center. Will all members of the Advisory Board please stand to be recognized? These folks also do a tremendous amount of work. Very, very philanthropic as well. And we're very fortunate to have the tremendous support of many generous benefactors. At this time, I'd like to recognize and thank our luncheon benefactors of $10,000 and above. Please hold your applause until I've completed reading this impressive list. Leading benefactor, Aero Electronics, Dan and Cindy Caruso, Sharon and Lanny Martin, Mary and George Sissel, UC Health, University of Colorado Foundation, mentoring benefactors, AMG National Trust Bank, the Anschutz Foundation, Boulder Organic, Dick and Joyce Brown, Delta Dental, Jacqueline Leifer Foundation, Nan and Spike Eklund, Kathy and Graham Hollis, Betsy Mangoni, Jan and John Meck, Catherine and Ray Petros, Judith B. Wagner, Platte River Equity, Sunflower Bank. Let's give them all a round of applause here. And anybody that has ever run a nonprofit or any sort of an organization knows that until somebody provides resources, nothing happens. So this is really a big deal to me and to the organization. Please refer to your program or view the screens during lunch for a complete list of our benefactors. We're grateful for each and every one of you. Now I'm excited to share with you a video that includes a personal story as well as thoughts from our Center for Women's Health Research researchers, faculty, and a board member about the impact and possibilities afforded by the center. We are grateful to our friends at Blueprint, a company founded in Denver by CWHR board member John Levisay, whose team created the video. And John's also on my board, and you're going to love the video. So roll the video. Thank you.
It was December of 2008, which was my junior year of high school. At the time, I was a nationally ranked tennis player. I decided to join the swim team during the off season to stay in shape. And I had only been on the swim team for 2 weeks when I had a sudden cardiac arrest. I was just on my very first lap towards the end of the deep end, and I remember feeling short of breath, and then the next thing I knew, I blacked out. I was down for 9.5 minutes, which is a long time. And then it took 2 shocks from the AED to restart my heart. Retrospectively, I'm glad that one of our coaches was a female who was perfectly comfortable cutting off my swimsuit and performing CPR over my chest area, and she's the one who basically did all the life-saving efforts. If she wasn't there, I wonder if there might have been a delay in the care that I got. Any longer delay could have been detrimental.
When we think about sex and gender, we've actually found that there is a 5% absolute difference between men and women, with women receiving less bystander CPR than men. It's a sizable difference when you're thinking about individuals who are receiving a life-saving therapy. That's kind of what we're working with right now to try and reduce this disparity. It shouldn't matter if you're a man, a woman, if you're a different race, ethnicity, age. It shouldn't matter who you are. You should receive bystander CPR irrespective of those factors.
Men and women are different. I think most people know this, but may not realize the depth of those differences. And we need to have enough good treatments for women and men.
Women's health is a basic human right, and so I think it's really important to understand women's health and how women present with diseases, how we treat them appropriately, what types of therapies work better in their bodies, and make sure that they are referred for therapies and other options the same as men.
I think it's very empowering for women to understand some of the issues that are out there and to be able to discuss that with their healthcare provider. The center is empowering women to be advocates for themselves.
If we can even make a small impact in that group of patients, it would be a big impact for society.
The University of Colorado, I would say, is poised to be one of the top places in the world in women's health and sex differences, and I'm really excited by that.
The center has become a beacon of training and education for the next generation of scientists in the field of sex differences in women's health research.
We are growing the new body of researchers and the new body of doctors who are going to take care of these people.
If we want young scientists to succeed, we need to mentor them, we need to guide them, we need to help them step on one stone to the next and stay in careers in academic medicine.
And hopefully that will make a difference in the trajectory of their career and help them get to the point where they feel successful too.
because we want the best and brightest in the field of women's health research, and that's what we aim to get.
I'm a fourth-year medical student studying to be an anesthesiologist. It was really critical that CPR was there so that I didn't have any cognitive deficits and I'm able to pursue this route.
I think we've come very far, but that doesn't mean we don't have a long way to go. I think there's tremendous hope for the future.
Unfortunately, people don't get involved until something like this happens to them or to a loved one because it kind of hits closer to home.
So you don't have to be a researcher to be involved in research. Contribute, especially to the Center for Women's Health Research. Without their seed grants, I would not be where I was today. And those seed grants have been funded by, one, the hard work of our board of directors and the community and the fundraising efforts that have gone there.
The difference that the public has made is incredible. It has changed the possibilities forever. And it will allow us to change the future of women's health.
You don't have to have an MD behind your name to be able to save lives and help people.
Wow. Thanks so much to Britton for sharing your wonderful story. And thank you, George, and Blueprint for kicking us off so beautifully this morning. I'm Nan Eklund. I serve on the Center Advisory Board and have for 10 years. The last 2 as board chair. Thank you all for being here today. You make such a difference in our community to have your presence and show the support for research in women's health and sex differences for the center researchers who are working so hard to find answers to make healthier, happier lives for everyone. As Britton said, you don't have to be an MD or a PhD to make a difference. I got involved with the center 10 years ago so that I could continue my interest in the healthcare sector, particularly healthcare for women. Also, I wanted to give back to the university that both my husband Spike and I attended and regard highly. Health and education are very important to us, and the fact that you're here today shows that they're important to you as well. I love the opportunity to learn, and this luncheon gives me that. I encourage you all to take advantage of all the educational opportunities offered by the center. Please talk with your friends, your family, and certainly your healthcare providers about women's health and sex differences. As Dr. Judy Regensteiner is fond of saying, what good does it do to have important research findings sit on the shelf? There are contact cards for you on your table so that you can receive the center's educational information and enter your name to be one of the lucky 5 to receive a signed book from Dr. Mukherjee. I believe the Center for Women's Health Research has done, is doing, and will continue to do great things in healthcare. I'm fortunate to be part of that, and it's my privilege to ask you all to play a part in it too. Be the change. Healthy women, healthy world. Please use the envelope on your table as a way to support the Center for Women's Health Research. Once completed, please put it into the larger envelope also on the table. We are so thankful for you, the community, in lending support and encouragement for research in women's health and sex differences. Thank you. So please enjoy your lunch along with the rest of today's program.
I can see that you're all enjoying this luncheon, and what I love is this sea of faces. My name is Dr. Jane Roosh, and I'm one of the associate directors of the center. And I am one of those people that had the opportunity to raise my hand, having been at the first lunch at the Tattered Cover. The first lunch at the Tattered Cover talked about ideas. We talked about how the idea that women had not been studied with equal parity to men made no biological sense. We talked about the idea that change requires investment. And we talked about the idea that the community was one of the most effective ways for us to gain momentum to address important scientific questions. So I am having the incredible privilege today to introduce Dr. Judy Regensteiner. Judy is my long-term colleague and research partner in trying to understand sex differences in exercise in women with diabetes. And she is also a visionary leader. And what does it mean to be a visionary leader? It means to take the idea and put that into an executable vision that could support more than 70 junior scientists and create the next generation of the scientific workforce for women's health research and sex differences. So I want to tell you who she is, because of course, maybe one of you in this room doesn't already know, but just to say, she is the director and founder of the Center for Women's Health Research. She is the Judy and Joe Wagner Chair in Women's Health Research. And she is the person who has been driving this vision for the last 16 years, starting with a partnership with two other scientists, Dr. Joanne Lindenfeld and Lorna Moore, and building a research community to address issues in women's health and sex differences across the lifespan. So let's welcome Dr. Judy Regensteiner.
Thanks, Jane. That was a very nice introduction. And thanks all of you for being here today. I'm thrilled to see all of you. It's just so exciting to me. 15 years ago, when we received official center status from the Regents of the University of Colorado, I never would have imagined this day. Lunch with 800 friends, featuring a Pulitzer Prize-winning author, Dr. Mukherjee, and that the President and First Lady of the University of Colorado, Mark and Debbie Kennedy, Chancellor Don Elliman of the Anschutz Medical Campus, Dorothy Harrell of the Denver campus, and the Dean of the School of Medicine, John Riley, would all be with us here today. It's like a dream sometimes, and I do feel that the center makes my dreams come true. Thank you, and I mean that very deeply. Thank you for being here. Your support and the strong backing from our university leadership for women's health and sex differences research on the Anschutz Medical Campus makes me incredibly proud and excited for the future of women's health. I am inspired by Siddhartha Mukherjee's work and thrilled that we're able to bring such a tremendous leader, thinker, and Pulitzer Prize-winning author to speak to us all. George Sparks, President and CEO of the Denver Museum of Nature and Science, my sincere thanks for being the MC today. George, you're a longtime friend of the center, and your involvement is an honor to me and to all of us. Jack Finlaw, President and CEO of the CU Foundation, thank you so much for going on this journey with us. It means a lot, and I'm thrilled to be partners with the CU Foundation. I want to thank our wonderful host committee and all of our sponsors for involvement in and financial support of the annual luncheon. We're so honored to have Sharon and Lanny as our host committee chairs again, and to have the support of each and every one of you. Men in the audience, and I see a lot of you here today, and that's thrilling to me. We need you to be involved. Every real field of medicine and science needs to have both men and women involved, and your involvement means the world and is necessary to help us really get going in the field. I want to thank my husband, Ken, and my daughter, Allie. Thanks for your support. You're the best, and I'm so fortunate in having the wonderful family that I do. The center is truly a team enterprise, and I don't know if all of you know our structure, but in addition to the critical support by all of you and the university leadership, we have a scientific council. I don't know if all of you know about the Scientific Council. It's comprised of internationally known scientists from around the country as well as from here, and that group helps guide our scientific agenda, which is fantastic. And we meet with the Scientific Council every year. We have a big reception, and we learn so much from doing this. Our Community Advisory Board, I think everyone is aware of, but it's instrumental in everything we do. It's woven into our very fabric and has been from the very start. And I think it's a key to our success to have the community be involved. I always do say universities do great things, but if nobody gets to hear about them, ultimately who cares? The university needs to share the knowledge that we gain from our research with the community, and through doing that, we're all enriched, and that's, to me, the win for everybody. Jan Meck is our current board chair, and I really appreciate you for your leadership and energy, Jan. It's really nice and wonderful that you're our chair of the Community Advisory Board. Our board gives us advice, ideas, and enthusiastic leadership, which ties us into our community. So again, that's sort of weaving together our fabric, which is comprised by science, which we're all here to celebrate today, and the community. And we bring science to the community. I'm incredibly grateful to have Drs. Jane Roosh and Wendy Court as Center Associate Directors, and Drs. Ann Libby and Amy Hipschman as leading faculty. Each of them are renowned scientists, and we're very fortunate to have their partnership and leadership in women's health and sex differences research on the Anschutz Medical Campus. I also want to thank the phenomenal center staff. Every year the staff says to me, "You don't have to thank us," and every year I say, "Well, good luck doing this myself," with no help, so I do have to thank them. I thank you, Jennifer Ingleby, Elizabeth Hepworth, Ashley Ertmer, Ann Kirschmar, Nanu Day, Carly Pillis, and Brandon Ellis. And those of you who are keeping track will know that we have grown a bit, and I'm really excited to show that our programs require some growth, and that's just so exciting. I also want to recognize, last but certainly not least, our junior scientists. And some are not so junior anymore. We've been doing this for 16 years. We now have some of our junior faculty that are full professors that have really progressed. We have one of our junior faculty who's gotten an endowed chair himself. We have one who has just become a full professor with tenure. Our junior scientists are doing well. Our goal is to keep them doing women's health and sex differences research and to keep them here working with us at the university. And we have been very successful at this, and it is so exciting. When I see this amazing group of people here today, when a young scientist gets funded, when a board member gets excited about what we're doing, when my wonderful university supports women's health in a big way, and when the staff and researchers are buzzing about an exciting new idea, these things bring me a lot of joy. I'm a very fortunate person, as I get joy from other people's joy. So when one of our young faculty gets funded, I am happy. Don't get me wrong, I'm also happy when I get a grant. But I get a lot of joy out of people's joys, and that enriches me so much because we now have 70 young scientists, so I really enjoy all of their successes. And we help them through their hard times as well. So this is the kind of thing that brings me joy every day, keeps me going, gets me going in the morning, and keeps me going late into the night. I am very grateful. Because of your support, the center is starting to make a big difference in people's lives. Some of the findings of our young scientists are starting to find their way into the medical practice, so they're going to help all people. And this is so exciting to me. In the years past, I've used this time to share some key numbers with you. The number of center researchers, as I mentioned before, is now over 70. This is unbelievable. We started with 1 in 2006, and now we have over 70. The number of areas the center has funded research, in terms of research on the Anschutz Medical Campus, the number of areas that we're in is now 34. I think science should always be interdisciplinary, and we really are seeing that in our work. We also know that the knowledge and research that our researchers have carried out has resulted in $78 million in federal grants so far. So that's really good. Our return on investment is such that if we give out $1, our young scientists bring back $46. So the center isn't capturing this money, our young scientists are, and that's where the money should go, comes to the university, and enriches us all through their findings. Without that kind of investment, people aren't going to be able to do scientific work, so it's really important. We have an impressive return on investment. We started with our annual luncheon as our only event. Now we have over 20 educational events, which we provide to researchers, to physicians in the community, and most importantly, perhaps to the public. So we have a lot of events for all of you, and we really are thrilled about that. Last year, we announced that we were expanding from 2 to 3 main focus areas. We started, and we still focus on cardiovascular disease and diabetes. Now we have added mental health in the last year. Our plan from the very beginning was that as we grew and were able to sustain it, that we would grow our areas of focus in women's health and sex differences, and now we actually have been able to do it thanks to the generous gift from the Anschutz Foundation, which allowed us to grow into a new area. And we are fully engaged in that area, and some great work is already starting to result. So that's exciting. We're very grateful for that. The support we receive in all these measures tell us that our model and mission of doing our groundbreaking, high-tech, and cutting-edge research is working. Things are working. We are training the next generation of scientists. We are growing a field that was so junior that there was hardly anyone in it, really, when we started. And now around the country, my colleagues and I are growing the field of women's health and sex differences so that there are people to study this important area, which is just so exciting. The seeds we plant are growing into larger projects and changes in care, treatment, diagnosis, prevention strategies, and more. We're going to be able to actually improve the health of women and men across the lifespan, which is very exciting. Last year, I shared my vision for the future, and it's worth repeating. The center exists today because there have been over 100 years of research, data collection, and treatment development that largely ignored the existence of women. Most studies until 1993 with the NIH reauthorization grant did exclude women, and it was for probably misguided but well-intentioned thoughts of preserving, reproductive health, but it resulted in a huge lack of knowledge in women's health. We are here, along with our colleagues around the country, of which we're now one of the most big and leading edge groups. We are resolved to change that, and we are in the process of doing that right now. Because of you, we are starting to make a big difference, but more work needs to be done. We need to do the research that we talk about. We need to train our next generation of researchers so that there are talented, best and brightest young scientists who will do the important work. And we need to share our findings with practitioners and the public so that everybody can work together to change healthcare for the better. We've made a lot of progress, but our goals are even much higher. It's my hope in the not too distant future that we'll double again the amount of center researchers, that we'll have women health, sex differences researchers who are scholars, who we can fully devote their time to the kind of work that we want to do, and provide a much needed career path for young people who wanted to go into this area. We want to grow our focus areas and expand beyond cardiovascular disease and diabetes and mental and behavioral health, although these are three very big areas that strongly affect women. And we want to shorten the length of time that it takes to share what we learned through research so that you get the information even more quickly than you are now. We want to continue to be a leading voice nationally and internationally. We are now, as I alluded to before, in working with all our colleagues across the country, we're becoming one of the top national leaders in the field, and we're going to keep going in that direction because science really should be international. It shouldn't just be shared in any one institution. The knowledge should be shared everywhere, and that's what we really want to do. Now we turn to the exciting part of the luncheon where I tell you that we've added 10 new scientific projects to our roster, which now includes, again, over 70 MD and PhD faculty. When I say we added new projects, for those of you who are new to the center, what that means is that people compete for our grants. Nobody gets a check handed to them and says, have a good life, good luck. No. Would that it would always be that easy, that people come to you and say, you look like a person who's going to do good research. Here's some money. Unfortunately, this is not how it works. So at a time of year, we put out a call for grants, and we send out this call, and people can respond to it. They write a grant. It's judged. These projects are judged by a team of respected scientists who are experts in the field. And we do what's called peer review. We review the grants, and then the best ones are chosen. And, it's hard, because a lot of times in science, it's a career where a lot of times your grant doesn't get chosen. But if you keep trying and you have good ideas and good mentorship, you're more likely to get chosen. So we seed grants, we give these awards every year in the highly competitive process. We're giving out about $25,000 to $50,000, which may or may not sound like a lot of money, but the amount of money that it is allows people to do their first research project, get funded, and then write a bigger grant. And that's where the $78 million in federal funds has come in, starting with a small grant. I remember one of our early seed grants was given to a young pediatric neonatologist who needed one piece of data to write his big grant. And he couldn't get that piece of data, and without it, he wasn't going to get funded. And we gave him our $25,000 grant, which he applied for and competed for, and he went back with the data he obtained to write a $3 million grant. And he is now very successful, very well funded. We see this a lot amongst our young scientists, so that's really exciting. And then, of course, we capture them into the field, make them center scientists, and we're all very excited. So that's how it works. And the process is critical to young scientists. Before I tell you of the scientists, I want to tell you who the funders are for the seed grants, which include the University of Colorado School of Medicine, for which I'm very appreciative. The funders of the seed grants this year, and these are the people that gave the money, include, and please hold your applause till I've announced all the awardees as well as the awarders, Kathy and Graham Hollis, the Leafers, the List Family Foundation, the Ludeman Family, the Rose Community Foundation, the Specialized Center of Research Excellence on Sex Differences, and again, the University of Colorado School of Medicine, and other generous donors. Now I'm going to announce our young scientists. And they are Fabrice Dabertrand, PhD, Alyssa Kova, MD, PhD, Genevieve Moyer, Dr. Genevieve Moyer, MD, Andrew Novick, MD, PhD, Vijay Ramakrishnan, MD, Kaylee Tomerdal, MD, Natalie Nokoff, MD, Chelsea Megan, PhD, Danielle Serrano and Peter Baker, who are working together on a joint project, and the Jacqueline's Wish for the Heart Conference Travel Award goes to Kristen Nadeau. So let's have a round of applause for these scientists. Next, it is my extreme pleasure to welcome Dr. Elizabeth Welberg to the stage. Although our work has not focused on cancer research, we know that if an area leads us to an exciting direction, we go there. And Dr. Welberg studies both diabetes and cancer. So by studying diabetes, she kind of brought ourselves in range of the center, and we grabbed her because she's terrific. We all know that we have to treat cancer when it arises, but what about the consequences of the treatments, which, as you who have experienced breast cancer know, can be very, very tough. As more and more women are surviving breast cancer, this is becoming an increasingly important area. Dr. Welberg is going to speak to you today about her exciting research in this critical area. Thank you, Dr. Welberg.
Thank you for the invitation to talk. I'm very excited to be here. And I'm excited to see how many people support the center. And I can't wait to tell you a little bit about myself and my work and what role the center has played in my life. Okay, it is the green button. So I have loved science since I was in 7th grade. And as you'll hear, I'm a breast cancer researcher. Part of this is because of my mother's inspiration. When I was 3 years old and my sister was 6 months old, our mother was diagnosed with breast cancer. But she received excellent treatment, and she's now a 30-plus year survivor, and she's actually here today. I am who I am and where I am because of her, without a doubt. I was born and raised in San Antonio, Texas, and then I spent 10 years in College Station, where I earned my bachelor's degree and my PhD. In graduate school, I studied normal mammary gland biology because I believe that you can't understand how a system is broken, which is the case in breast cancer, unless you understand how it works normally. After graduate school, I was recruited to the University of Colorado Anschutz campus to work with some of the world's best and brightest breast cancer researchers. I continued my training in cancer biology, and I began to study diabetes and metabolism as they affect the tumor and the rest of the body. So towards the end of my postdoctoral training, my husband and I had this beautiful child. We just have one, but I couldn't pick just one picture. Although there are times, and this morning was one of them, where it felt like we had 3 or more of him. But even as far as women have come professionally, a lot of us still struggle with balancing our responsibilities at work and at home. And when he was a baby, when my son was really young, I had reached a point in my career, despite all the training I had and how much I loved what I did, I reached a point where I felt like I wasn't sure I could continue my work. I felt like I was spread way too thin, and success in any area of my life was out of reach. But this was when I put in a seed grant to the Center for Women's Health Research, outlining an idea that I had to study diabetes, type 2 diabetes specifically, in breast cancer survivors. And since I'm here right now, you can imagine that, guess that the grant was awarded, as Judy just said. And I realized that the center not only provides financial support for my project, which we've heard about this morning, but also general support for the rest of my life as well. So through the center, I learned about negotiating, I learned about grant writing, research dissemination, resume building, and general tips and tricks to balance my responsibilities. And I also found myself surrounded by other women who were like me, trying to get their careers off the ground, and who had children at home and felt like they just weren't getting it right anywhere. And at that point, I felt like my career really began to take off. So let me tell you a little bit about what I do. As many of you know, breast cancer is unfortunately a very common disease. 1 in 8 women is at risk for developing breast cancer in her lifetime. And currently, more than 3 million women in the United States have or have had breast cancer. You also know, I'm sure, that diabetes is very common. Almost 30 million people in the US have diabetes. 13.5 million of these people are women, and the overwhelming majority of these cases are type 2. What you may not realize is that breast cancer and diabetes are linked to each other in a very complex way, and this is what I study. We as scientists know that type 2 diabetes, which is often but not always accompanied by obesity, increases the risk for being diagnosed with breast cancer and also confers resistance of existing cancers to conventional therapies. What we're beginning to realize now is that common breast cancer treatments, particularly those that block estrogen, which is the majority of them, actually increase the risk for type 2 diabetes in breast cancer survivors. So over time, you can imagine that this cycle has a very negative impact on women's health. And it's my goal to improve women's health, whether that's through advances in cancer treatment or preventing chronic diseases such as diabetes in cancer survivors. And that's a big goal, I realize that, and it's only something I can accomplish through a team science approach, which is something else I get from the center. So in addition, I work with people who have expertise in diabetes, of course, and metabolism and cancer, but I also work with people who have expertise in different kinds of science, and I want to tell you what that means. We can do basic science, which an example of which is studying tissues or cells growing in a dish. We do preclinical research, which is highly regulated research using animal models, and we have clinical researchers in our team, and they provide us the opportunity to understand the variability in human populations so that we can ultimately translate our findings back to the clinic, which is our goal. And using all of these tools and people, we study breast cancer, which I'm showing you here. This is a picture of a breast tumor under a microscope. And we also study metabolic tissues such as fat, shown here. So in some of our preclinical studies, what I work on right now, we found that while type 2 diabetes and obesity don't necessarily cause cancer, as I mentioned, they cause changes in cancer cells that can make them resistant to therapy. What we are studying now are ways that we can block or even reverse some of these changes. Some of the things we can and have studied include dietary modifications, exercise, prevention of weight gain, and specific drugs that target cancer cells in the obese or diabetic environment. On the other side of the coin, as I mentioned, we're interested in preventing type 2 diabetes in breast cancer survivors. So the good news is breast cancer therapy has come a long way, and your therapy is very likely to work, and you're likely to live a really long time. And now, through some of our preclinical studies, we're able to see that some of these therapies change the body in ways that promote the development of diabetes later on. And currently, we're studying specific drugs and exercise that can be given during breast cancer treatment to prevent diabetes, because the most important thing to remember is that these treatments are very effective and they should not be discontinued. So we're looking for ways to intervene during the treatment to prevent bad effects later on. So I want to end on some thoughts about why we get cancer. In some cases, we can identify a mutation in a specific gene that's responsible for cancer development, but this is pretty rare. These are hereditary cancers passed on from generation to generation. And an example of this in the breast cancer community would be the BRCA genes, which many of us have heard of. Those mutations in those genes increase the risk for developing breast and ovarian cancer. Unfortunately, most cancers, we cannot identify a specific genetic cause, and so we begin to look for environmental factors. This is where my work fits into this category. Things like diet, physical activity or the lack thereof, or chemical exposures such as tobacco and alcohol can sometimes turn genes on or off without changing their sequence necessarily. And you're going to hear more about this from Dr. Mukherjee in just a few minutes. Luckily, there are things that we can do to lessen our risk for diseases. Decades of research supports a healthy diet, such as lots of fruits and vegetables, whole grains, low-fat sources of protein for preventing a variety of illnesses, including cancer and diabetes. But it's okay to enjoy a treat, so go ahead and eat your dessert. I don't want anybody to think you can't have some sweets every once in a while. We also know that physical activity is very important for disease prevention. So stay moving several times a week. Even if you don't lose weight, your body's still benefiting from exercise. And finally, acknowledge your body and be aware of changes and talk to your doctor. This could mean mentioning a lump in your breast or noticing if you start to gain weight on a specific medication. 35 years ago, my mom found a lump in her breast, and at that point, breast cancer in young women was not common, and it would have been very easy for her doctor to just dismiss her concerns and say, you're too young, it's probably nothing, let's just wait and see. But he said the only way to know what it is to take it out and send it to the lab. And now she's here with us today. So always talk to your doctor and advocate for yourself. The best part about my job is my team or my tribe. I am surrounded and supported by more people than I can think of and even name. I have truly selfless and encouraging mentors. I have brilliant and enjoyable colleagues, and I have dedicated students and technicians. And we even enjoy treats, even though we study diabetes and cancer. We have ice cream and cookies together every once in a while. The center has played a crucial role in me staying in science and growing in science. And since I received my seed grant in 2016, I've been fortunate to receive funding from numerous agencies, and just this summer I started my first independent research grant from the National Cancer Institute, the elusive R01, and so I am beyond grateful, and I can't wait to see what my team and I can accomplish. Finally, I have an inspirational and supportive family. I have a husband who's also a center researcher, and I have a beautiful child who makes me smile every single day. So thank you all for being here, for supporting the center, and for supporting my work.
Hello, everyone. I'm Wendy Court, one of the associate directors of the center. And before I get to my assigned task today, I just want to take a moment to personally thank all of the people responsible for making this event such a success. The center sponsors a lot of activities every year, but this is the proverbial cherry on top. I have been attending this for 16 years, and I am more impressed each year with not only the accomplishments of the center, but the fact that we have so many community members who I'm sure are repeat joiners of this with us at this event. And I want to thank all of you, and I want to thank everybody from the center for all of their contributions to this. My task today is an easy one. I get to introduce our speaker, who comes to us from the Columbia University Irving Medical Center. Dr. Siddhartha Mukherjee is a highly accomplished physician scientist and an oncologist. He's done groundbreaking research on the composition and behavior of cancer cells that has pushed the boundaries of modern medicine. His work has contributed to the development of new biological and cellular therapies for cancer that reach beyond the traditional pharmaceutical approaches for treating cancer. His research, as you might imagine, has generated new hope, not only for patients, but for their families who are often devastated by the diagnosis of cancer, and this has revolutionized the blueprint for healing and surviving that diagnosis. Now, if that's not enough to get you excited about having Dr. Mukherjee here with us today, I should also mention, as Judy already has, that he's also a very accomplished author. He was awarded a Pulitzer Prize in 2011 for The Emperor of All Maladies, a biography of cancer. The Emperor of All Maladies was among Time magazine's 100 best nonfiction books from the past century. It was also adapted into a documentary film by filmmaker Ken Burns. Another one of Dr. Mukherjee's books, The Gene: An Intimate History, was acclaimed by both the Washington Post and the New York Times as one of the most influential books of 2016. So when I said that a lot of people put their work into making this event one of the best that the center sponsors, the cherry on top of all of our activities, I hope you will agree with me that they did their very best to bring you the very best. And I think you will agree with that at the end of Dr. Mukherjee's talk. So please join me in welcoming renowned physician, scientist, and author, Dr. Siddhartha Mukherjee, to the podium to share with us his unique insights on the other half of the genome, women, genomics, and the future of medicine.
So I love science, I love books, so therefore scientist authors are my heroes. So thank you so much again for this, the joy and insight that you brought us today. If you feel the same way I do about books and science, fill this card out at your table and you'll be put into a drawing for a copy of his latest book, The Gene. And then one final thing, we have a chance to bring one of you perhaps supreme joy today. Last night at the reception, somebody left their cell phone there. If it's your cell phone, if you'll call it, we'll track you down. So with that, have a great afternoon. We'll see you next year for number 17.